You tasked several of our members in a subcommittee with bringing recommendations to the full committee about potential referrals to the Department of Justice and other authorities based on evidence of criminal and civil offenses that has come to our attention over the course of our investigation. We are now prepared to share those recommendations today. Mr. Chairman, let me begin with some relevant background considerations to our criminal referrals. The dangerous assault on American constitutional democracy that took place on January 6, 2021 consists of hundreds of individual criminal offenses. Most such crimes are already being prosecuted by the Department of Justice. We propose to the committee advancing referrals where the gravity of the specific offense, the severity of its actual harm, and the centrality of the offender to the overall design of the unlawful scheme to overthrow the election compel us to speak.
Jamie Raskin, in a very long-winded roundabout way, says, hey, we're gonna recommend some charges for the former president and other folks as well. That's actually what's happening there in that clip. Really fast, also something else is happening in that clip because I just noticed these things. See the guy to his right, left side of our screen? He's very interested in what Jamie Raskin has to say. And in fact, he has some very serious head nods in the middle of it. I always look at aides behind them because I wonder what they're doing and thinking. Either way it goes, let's look at some of those referrals that they're talking about. 4 of them, I believe as well. Obstruction of official proceeding is one of those referrals from the January 6th committee. Also, conspiracy to defraud the United States. All of these for Donald J. Trump, former president. Conspiracy to make a false statement as well. And lastly, incite, assist, or aid or comfort in insurrection are the 4 referrals that they're pushing. His actions could also constitute violations of 2 other conspiracy statutes, depending on potential evidence developed by the Justice Department. That's what the panel said in a summary of the report. But Jamie Raskin wasn't the only one talking. We know Liz Cheney, one of the 2 Republicans on the committee, and on her way out because of her commitment to stick with this panel and figure out what all was going on. She had some parting words for Trump as well too, as they wrap this up. Let's watch.
Every president in our history has defended this orderly transfer of authority, except one. January 6th, 2021 was the first time one American president refused his constitutional duty to transfer power peacefully to the next. Our legal system functioned as it should, but our president would not accept the outcome. Among the most shameful of this committee's findings was that President Trump sat in the dining room off the Oval Office watching the violent riot at the Capitol on television. For hours, he would not issue a public statement instructing his supporters to disperse and leave the Capitol. No man who would behave that way at that moment in time can ever serve in any position of authority in our nation again. He is unfit for any office.
Unfit for absolutely any office, Liz Cheney says. Again, as I said, there were 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans, including her, on this panel. And this is part of what they were looking to push, and we'll see what the Department of Justice does. The 9 members also voted to issue referrals for several of Trump's allies, including John Eastman, a conservative lawyer and architect of that legal strategy for then Vice President Mike Pence to unilaterally throw out state electoral college votes on January 6th, which Mike Pence I guess famously rejected. And Jeffrey Clark, a Justice Department official who drafted a letter urging state officials to appoint new slates of electors. Those 2 are very illegal and non-democratic approaches to try and overturn that election because they were part of it. No, Trump could not do this alone. It didn't stop there. There's other folks. There's also elected officials that were asked to be there. There were subpoenaed that are also getting some charges too. Here's some more of that.
As part of our investigation, we asked multiple members of Congress to speak with us about issues critical to our understanding of this attack on the 2020 election and our system of constitutional democracy. None agreed to provide that essential information. As a result, we took the significant step of issuing them subpoenas based on the volume of information particular members possessed about 1 or more parts of President Trump's plans to overturn the election. None of the subpoenaed members complied, and we are now referring 4 members of Congress for appropriate sanction by the House Ethics Committee for failure to comply with lawful subpoenas.
The recount here on Twitter pointed out those 4 elected officials: Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, and Andy Biggs were the 4 Republicans that were referred for those appropriate sanctions based off of their decision to ignore those subpoenas or interfere at all or cooperate at all with this entire investigation. So this whole recommendation from the Justice Department to the Justice Department is non-binding, as everyone has pointed out. So it's up to the Justice Department to figure out whether or not they're going to do anything about this. As we've heard Jack Smith's name come up from Trump Truth Social Posts, he was appointed there by Merrick Garland to do something about this. Was, is this going to go anywhere? Because as this whole thing is gone, before referrals came, as we saw those 18 different sessions from the January 6th committee, many people were like, yeah, but Merrick Garland and the Justice Department aren't going to do anything about it. Has anything changed in your mind?
You know, I really wonder, because I don't think a lot of people sort of understand this or think about this, but generally speaking, presidents can't commit crimes. What I mean by that is they have extra judicial and legal powers, right? It's why when Barry gets in office, he's like, we're not gonna prosecute George Bush for the war in Iraq. Like, he probably committed war crimes, but that's just the nature of the job. Trump gets in office, he's not gonna prosecute Obama for the drone war and the craziness, like the children, the innocents that died, under Obama's authority during the ridiculous drone war in places like Yemen and other spots in the Middle East, right? And so there's an understanding between all these guys that they have to commit crimes to do the job, right? But this is different. This is like a really petulant school child basically not getting his way and throwing a temper tantrum and getting a few people killed and a lot of people hurt in the process. And to be clear, like, Donald Trump's coup was not a coup, right? The military bureaucracy that is firmly entrenched don't give a damn about this dude. They weren't gonna help him take over the government. This was just an exercise in a guy who knows he has a hold over a few people and he could basically stomp and shout and cry about not getting his way. So I'm of 2 minds here. Like, presidents can't commit crimes. They can't go to jail for the things that they do while they're in office. But this is so outside of the bounds of the kinds of crimes that they usually commit, namely crazy, horrible things overseas. So I don't know. I really don't know. I hate that answer, but I don't know, Jayar.
Well, that's the difference, I think. International crimes, international things that are committed against other folks that we consider lesser than us, those we can get away with, because who's gonna stop us?
Because who cares about brown people in the Middle East,
But then once it's committed against our own citizens, to a large enough degree, by the way, because there's plenty of crimes committed against our own citizenry that's sanctioned by the powers that be, or at least allow these things to happen without much any culpability. But this being something that was on such a broad scale, and there's enough elected officials, because those are the people that are gonna decide whether or not this is gonna go down, and also appointed people in the Justice Department. That's the last stage. Whether or not they think this can shake up our government and our stability of our government and the powers that control it. That's always the question. Like, well, if we do this, what could lead, what could then come off of this? I think they're worried about. And maybe they're fine deciding this is just one guy we can get rid of and it won't be a problem. But then again, there's still those millions of people that are supporting him. And he's, as you mentioned, a petulant child. He went on like 4 to 5 to 10 to 12 to 15 Truth Social posts about how unfair this is. You can imagine what those things were that he said. Part of it being the list Cheney lost. Okay, so did you, bro. So did you.